everybody, it's Chadwick from M22 Mini Bikes. Today we're going to build out this Harbor Freight non-Hemi 212. Rockers, keys, feeler gauges, the piston, the rings, the rod, chromoly push rods, 26-pound springs, a hot 265 cam, 12-point quarter-inch socket, and a little torque wrench. I'm also going to port the head. We're going to use this and some rasps. I'm here with my son Kane, and I'm going to teach him how to build an engine. So I figured we would film it, and anybody that wants to know would now know how we do it. Or if you plan to race here in the proposed track in the spring with an old fart dirt cart or whatever you got, then you're going to want to know how to build an engine. This is a number 8mm socket. Only use power tools to disassemble, never to reassemble. And I always keep a little dish here so that every screw part that comes off the engine goes into that cup. So that way you don't lose anything. I also do it on a towel so that your screws don't roll away. So we have new Champion rockers we're going to replace these with. We have chromoly push rods. This is all just stock length. We have a piston we're going to put in. Again, this is a flat top stock length piston and a stock length billet connecting rod. So we'll see if we can't get this little cork gasket off. I like to find a spot I can get under it with a putty knife. You don't want to ruin it. So you just got to spend more money. We got 2 head bolts in here and then right here, 12mm. And the head just popped loose, super easy. Okay. And there we go. Little post that has to go in there to line everything up. So we'll go ahead and pull our push rods out. Alright, so we'll take the head and set that aside for now. And then we'll get to work on this. Everybody's always afraid to work on an engine because they just don't know. So I'm just going to take you all the way through, good or bad, so you can see how it works. And then just kind of wiggle that sucker off. And most times you can save the head, the gasket. Look at that, beautiful. We have most of the oil out. We're doing good, all the parts in here. Do not lose these posts right here. These are super important. Put them both in there. So now we can go ahead and pull the cam out. You just pull it out and take off the connecting rod. The stock connecting rod bolts are a 10mm. The crank will come away from the piston. And we can just go ahead and push that sucker out. There we go. There's your piston and rod. Arrow points down. Always points down after. Pulls out. Actually, I don't think the governor can get the crank out. Okay. Now you can get everything. So now your thing come off. You ain't got to cut it. Okay. That is your governor arm. This gear we got to get out of there. And that's fun to do. You can beat it out with a screwdriver. There's also a washer up here. See that? If you wouldn't have got that washer, that'd have fell in your engine and ruined it. Okay? So make sure you get that washer off of the top. There's also a washer just like that at the base of this gear. So how I get my gears off is I take a screwdriver and I sand it flat so it's sharp. Okay? You're just going to come at it on the side, like right here, and cut that gear down. Okay, there's also this little cover that can pop off of there. You just grab this on and pull it off. See, here we go. So then I'll go in, cut the bottom where I made the cut, like that. Okay, and once it's cut, I don't know if you can see, if it'll focus, I just cut it on two sides and it split it all the way down, see? Split it in half. At that time, you just grab the son of a bitch with a pair of pliers and pull it out. Start it with a screwdriver, maybe. Go all in there. Hey, that worked. So a thin screwdriver will work just fine. We got to plug some holes. We've got to plug the oil sensor hole and the top governor hole and the hole we just made right here. I have a couple of 1/4 inch grade 8 bolts. They don't have to be grade 8, but just short little 1/4 inches that we're going to use to fill these holes. So you'll see, if you get yourself an impact, you don't have to do anything stupid. You just take this little bolt, put it in there, give her a few ugga-duggas, and she'll thread herself. See? Hole plugged professionally in there. Here we go. She'll straighten out. Just quick ugga-duggas until she reaches the end. See? Nice. And in there, barely sticking out. See? Beautiful. We gotta take this crank. This is the governor gear. We don't need that shit. Stuff. We don't need that stuff. There it is. I don't have a bolt short enough. I used to, but I've used them up for other things. So we're just gonna cut this one off. I'm gonna stick it through there and put the nut on the outside. Whoa, you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I've never seen them jump like that. There's a 14 and a 10. So 14 around the base, 10. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these and put the two nuts on top of each other with a washer in between, so that we can install these new studs into the head. So we get that first nut, put a washer on it, and then the other nut. And get those tight, and then take an open end wrench and tighten those two together. Alright, so you can see we have our spring and retainers in. This fight is your own, getting these sungers in there. I hate that part. That to me is the worst part of the whole build. I have the tool somewhere, but we just looked for it, and since we kind of rearranged things lately, we can't seem to find it. Now we're going to put our posts on. I like the sticky stuff here because, man, when you go to put your rods and stuff in, it's really nice. It holds it in there really well. You simply slide over the posts down like that. There are no lash caps on a non-Hemi 212. So then same thing. We'll put some oil. And then these go on. Now, Champion didn't seem to send any information on how tight these should be, but I just torque them tight as f. So you have an oil scraper, which is this waffle looking thing here. This is your oil scraper, if it'll focus. So I'm going to start my ring in the groove that it needs to go in, and then just kind of come around with it. So now we've got a nice sandwiched oil scraper. So now the big thick black ring goes in there. Then the chrome lip. Okay. I'm going to go upward. Open up our clips. The G clips. If only a real G gets the G clip. Alright, so we're going to put one in one side. There's a little groove in there. Okay. I'm going to put that sucker in there. Boom, snaps in. See? See that? So now I'm going to put some oil in there. I'll lube this sucker up. That looks nice. I'm going to stick that sucker in there a little bit. Put some goop in here. Okay. Okay, arrow down and the cup down. And slide that pin. Oops, see if I can slide that pin through there into the next one. And then you got to install this other G-clip. Recheck my piston gap placement. Stick it in this thing. Okay. And we take this, got it upside down, like this. Tighten it back up around there. Okay. I'm gonna goop the inside of this sucker. Arrow down. Get it set in there. There we go. Now we're in. Oh, my bolt's keeping me from getting in there. So these have to be torqued to 170 inch-pounds, and you need to swap back and forth every, I think it's 20. Okay, there's 100. So then we'll start here. That was it. And then we'll seal the deal at 170 inch-pounds. So there it is. That's it. Do not mess with it after that. There it was. So now we are torqued and ready to go. Okay. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we already drilled it out once. In here, there's 3 holes. You got 2 big ones and 1 tiny one in the middle down in this socket. You're probably not going to be able to see it. We're going to drill that sucker out a little bit bigger. That way the oil flows from the valves into the engine faster. We're going to take our spring retainers and springs out. When the stock springs are relatively easy to take out, you just kind of push down and they come out. So we'll push our valves out. There we go. But we don't want those to get marked up, so we're going to leave them in a nice spot. So what we're going to try to do is clean up these rough edges with the Dremel tool. Is right, let me get it straight here. Right here is a real sharp edge. Okay, we're going to make that nice and rounded. Okay, so now we're going to show you what we did. You can kind of see in the darker spot what we took out of there, just to kind of smooth it out. We didn't do nothing too crazy. We just got rid of that sharp edge on both sides. I also have a thinner head gasket, a 0.10, I believe it is. Alright, so we're going to torque it at 20 foot-pounds. Here we go. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this assembly oil on my lifters. Stick them back in there. They go up in there, those holes. Okay. Like I said, I like this lube because it's sticky and it holds things in place. See that? I'm going to lube up the cam. I'm going to lube on everything. Alright, now there's a little dot on your cam. Okay? And a little dot on the crank. So So when you put this in order to get the correct timing, oops, lost the dot. You need to line up the two dots. See that? There, now see we got the dots lined up. So now we're in the correct timing. Okay, and that's the time when it opens all the valves and everything. Now we can put our push rods in. Okay, so I'm putting a bunch of grease on here, a bunch of grease on there. So what I like to do is back these out all the way. Excuse me. When I put my valves on, or my push rods, so that way these will go all the way that way. You know what I mean? I gotta look in there with the light, and there's a little hole. Stick that right in the end of that hole. Come around, push onto that, and then what I'll do is I'll just turn this until it's snug. Okay? Just for now, I ain't gonna do nothing perfect, but for now it'll hold the rod in place. Turn that down, and then we'll worry about getting top dead center and all that stuff. Now we need to be top dead center. I think that's it. Huh? All right, we can put our little gauge on here. Okay, we got from a OMB warehouse. It's a little thing that keeps your stuff in line. So now we are going to adjust our valve lash. So we have our 3/1000ths focus, 3/1000ths feeler gauge. You just want some resistance, that's all. Right now that's too much.
Tell me that you found the scout. Ah, that's exciting.
I've had them working around the block since we unearthed it about 2 weeks ago.
I just get it basically even though it's too tight, just so there's resistance. So just a little bit of resistance is good enough. Turn that down, tighten her up, nice and easy. So this one I didn't use an arc flywheel, I'm using this lightweight aluminum one, okay? Because in that cart I want it to rev up pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna tap it out. And the nut. I think that's it. All right, so now we're going to vent the block from the side cover up into the new valve cover. You can also take the old valve cover, and as you can see, there's two partitions. This wall is only halfway through. This is their little check valve. So if you want to just leave it like this, you can. You just got to put your 1/8 NPT on the inside portion so that the oil comes in here and not in the other chamber if you want to use it. As it comes with 2 holes, we're going to run 2 lines from the side cover to the valve cover, but we got to run a check valve off the side. We have a 1/8 MPT tap. Whatever focus, a 1/8 MPT tap. I think it's 11/32 bit. Drill a hole basically 45 degrees in this little area here. All right, so we got our 2 holes. Now we're going to take our tap. Okay, so we put our fittings in. I couldn't use the elbows because you can put one in, but you can't put the other one in. So what we'll do is we'll just notch the torque converter a little bit to make room for these hoses. We drilled and tapped our hole, and I got some JB Weld on this fitting, and we're just gonna thread it in there. All right, so now we have our angled fitting on the one side. We can go ahead and put our valve cover gasket on. So we're going to make sure that we clean out our side cover really well. Make sure that there's no metal shavings or loose epoxy, anything like that. Everything should be ready to rock and roll.
Let's do this.
Okay. Nice and smooth. I need to get rid of this stupid thing here, the super tall post. Sometimes you just cut it off, but that's not the right way of doing it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this off like that, and there's a little wire in there, one single little wire. Okay. All you need to do is come back some, strip off some of that rubber, twist this wire up, so you can see it right there. Okay. Now we have a spark plug boot kit. Okay, that just gives you a nice 90 degrees. So what we want to do is we want to fold this wire over like this. Okay. Then slide your boot over and grab that sucker. Don't be afraid. Just grab a hold of her and pull her through. And get her retwisted and clamped on the outside like that. Okay. Okay. So then we'll put this thing over so the wire touches it really well. Then I'm going to crimp the crap out of this thing so that that wire is pushing against that chrome thing or the metal conductor. Now what I also like to do is I like to take a torch lighter and drip some solder in there just to make sure that that sucker works really well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of solder and I'm going to roll it up into a ball. Okay? Just a little bit. Something like that. And I'm going to cut it off. And I'm going to put that piece of ball right in there where that wire hits the metal. And then I'm going to hit it with this torch real quick and it'll melt together, and this will be as good a plug wire as any aftermarket, anything you'd ever buy. Just heat the solder. It'll melt. When it gets hot enough, it'll melt against the metal and the wire. And I'm telling you, you can't get a better wire than that. All right, so what I did was I took 2 feeler gauges to make 40 thousandths, okay? So what I'm gonna do is when I put my coil on, that it stays right there real nice, I'm gonna put these in between. Basically, I push down on that sucker like that and then tighten it up. And then pull them out. So now you got a nice gap. As you can see, that solder melted against the wire and against the metal, and now you can put the boot over it and put it on the plug. One of the most important things you do when you put one of these valve covers on is to run a check valve off of the atmosphere. There's a little arrow on it. You want it to flow that way and not that way. So as you can see, we have our check valve, and then you could run this to a catch can or another piece of hose, whatever you need to do. With this kind of setup, most of your oil is going to run down there because we drilled out that hole earlier. So you shouldn't get too much overflow into here. So what this does is oil gets thrown up inside of here, and then oil travels up through these tubes and drops over your valves, and that keeps everything lubed up really nice and equalizes the pressure between the case and the head. So that's really all you need to do there. This is it, everybody. This is a fire-breathing son of a gun right here. I bet we at least doubled its horsepower. I'm probably 12, 13, 14 horse. I'm guessing something like that. So